And Lindsey Graham is joining us now. So, Senator, you had to run a crowd there in the Russell Rotunda as you were getting to the microphone there. But we do thank you for joining us. So, just if you could expound a little more on what you told Sean Hannity last night about Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and your potential support for him the next time he runs for leader.
Well, number one, I think Senator McConnell's been one of the best Republican leaders in the history of our party, but elections are about the future, not the past. Mitch worked with President Trump to get a bunch of judges on the court. He fought like a tiger for the 3 Supreme Court justices that were supported by President Trump. We got the tax cuts. So Mitch McConnell has a lot to be proud of. Here's my concern. If he runs, great. No matter who runs, you got to prove to me that you can work with President Trump, because he's the most consequential Republican in the party by a mile. The American First agenda is very popular with independents and Republicans. So all I'm saying is I like Mitch a lot. He has a lot to be proud of. But if you want to be a leader in 2022, I expect President Trump to run again for president. You don't have to agree with everything President Trump does or says. I don't. But you got to have a working relationship, because our party will not do as well as we could or should if we don't have a team approach from 2022 to 2024, where the House and the Senate Republicans are working with an American First agenda led by President Trump. So it's really common sense what I'm saying, and maybe that relationship can be repaired. I hope so.
Senator, some may hear you say that and hear your warning last night and think, are you looking too far beyond midterm elections? Does it help right now to be taking shots within your own party rather than just rolling out the welcome mat after losing the presidency and obviously controlling Congress?
No, I didn't. I wasn't the one saying that I'm going to run for majority leader in 2022. I'm okay with focusing on taking back the Senate majority. I am like all in for that. President Trump is indispensable to us when it comes to taking back the Senate. Mitch McConnell is raising a lot of money. He will be indispensable for the Republicans to take back the United States Senate in 2022. What brought this up is that Senator McConnell, who I respect and like and has a lot to be proud of, says he would seek another term as leader. And all I'm saying is, when we get to 2022, what I'm looking for is somebody that can work with the most powerful Republican in America, and that's Donald Trump. Why is he so powerful? People like what he did on our side as president, and a lot of independents are learning every day how important it was to have President Trump to be our president. If you're pro-life, there's never been a better Republican president on the pro-life issue than Donald Trump. If you believe in a strong military, we had it. He took the fight to the terrorists. We had borders that were secure. We had a growing economy. He did the vaccines that saved millions of lives for COVID. So that's why so many people like President Trump. To my Republican colleagues, you ask me all the time, go down to Mar-a-Lago and see if you can get him to let go of some of the 2020 issues. I think that's not an unreasonable thing to ask of him and me. But to my Republican colleagues, this is a two-way street. I think we need to understand and give credit to President Trump for being the most consequential Republican president since Ronald Reagan.
You know, Senator Graham, you said something very key there a moment ago. You said if they can repair the relationship. I think another question to ask is, do they want to repair the relationship? Big point of departure between Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump was over January the 6th. The minority leader gave a very strong speech on the Senate floor. And he doesn't seem to want to have too much of a relationship with President Trump. President Trump has called Mitch McConnell a lot of names, including Old Crow. Now, that said, Mitch McConnell is an astute politician, and you know, he knows how to build bridges when necessary. So, I mean, when push comes to shove, do you think they're going to want to repair the relationship?
I think it's in everybody's interest to be a team. I think the American First agenda works. I think Joe Biden's been a failure as a president, and it's there for the taking. But I'm not Dr. Phil. You know, it's not my job to fix every problem that we have, nor is it any other senator's job. I'm making an observation. If you don't understand what I'm saying, I think you're missing the point on the Republican side. You don't have to agree with Trump. What he did in Syria, I didn't like it. I've had my differences with President Trump, but I appreciate what he did. And the media tries to divide us all the time. January 6th was a dark day in American history, but it wasn't Pearl Harbor. It's not 9/11, and that's all they got to talk about. So to my Republican colleagues, let's spend our time growing the party and realize that President Trump is the most consequential Republican in the country since Ronald Reagan, and see if we can work together. Whether or not they can repair the relationship is up to them, not me. I hope so.
Senator, you wouldn't be saying any of this unless you believe Donald Trump was the future of your party.
You're so smart.
And that he can actually win.
You're so smart.
We know you well enough.
Is that it?
In case you missed the last 4 minutes, that's it. Yes. I mean, I'm just speaking. I mean, it's like the sun comes up in the east and it sets in the west. 70% of our party would like to see President Trump run again. I would like to see him run again. I'd like to see him change his behavior somewhat. I'd like to see him to focus more on election reform and talk about how we can repair the damage created by Joe Biden. Those are all legitimate concerns. But President Trump has unfinished business. I think he's the best person in the Republican Party to take the cause, take up the banner in 2024, because unlike Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, or anybody else, he actually was president. Yeah. And when he was president, your life was better, we were more prosperous, and we were safer. So yeah, I think he's going to run. If there's any doubt, I think it will go away fairly soon here. Just stay tuned.
What do you mean you think? What do you mean you think? You wouldn't be saying this unless you've spoken with him. What has he told you?
I think he's going to run. I'll let him speak for himself, but you'd have to be deaf, dumb, and blind not to see what's going on around here. The guy's got $100 million in the bank. He has wide support of the Republican Party, and a lot of people believe that the American First agenda was good for the party, good for the country. So I expect him to run. And to my Republican colleagues, I will do my best to try to help President Trump stay focused on messages good for us all, but this is a two-way street.
Yeah, you know, Senator, you and I have had this discussion in the past. You are more optimistic about his chances of running than others that I have spoken with, but you do talk to him an awful lot.
I'll take bets if anybody wants to bet.
Go to lindseygraham.com to place your bet. Hey, right. We got some breaking news here. This is coming in, and we want you to react to this. A split decision at the Supreme Court over the vaccine mandate. The Supreme Court has let stay the stay that would have required large companies to implement vaccine mandates or testing, but federally funded healthcare centers that employ healthcare workers, they have to adhere to the mandate. So again, the mandate will not go into effect against private companies. It will go into effect against federally funded healthcare companies and facilities. Senator, your reaction to this?
There's some symmetry to that where the federal government has a dominant role. I mean, you know, requiring mandates for the military, I'm not so sure that's the best idea, but that's certainly more in the realm of the executive branch. This idea of mandating to the entire country without Congress being on board to the private sector, the court is going to shoot down. So, you know, the court has got a lot of good conservatives on it. Thank you, President Trump. Thank you, Mitch McConnell. 2024 will be here before you know it, but if we don't win in 2022, John, shame on us. They're trying to give us the election. Let's take it. And to my Republican colleagues, the best way to win the House and the Senate is to be a team. And if we win in 2022, we got to stay a team. And the captain of the team is Donald Trump, whether you like it or not.
I'm sorry to dwell on it, but Senator, that goes back to the initial point. I mean, you said it. When you go back to the warning to Mitch McConnell, why would you do that in this moment in a midterm election year? As I said earlier, rather than just rolling out,
It's not a warning.
I'm asking for the meaning behind your warning.
It's not a warning. He says he wants to be the Republican leader. I've acknowledged he's been the most consequential Republican leader of my lifetime. He's done so much. I mean, Bob Dole was great. Well, look what Mitch accomplished working with Donald Trump. The question is, how do we go forward as a party? the Republican leader of the Senate and the House. You don't need to kiss Donald Trump's ass, but you got to have a working relationship with him for us to be successful. So the bottom line here is, if you don't have a working relationship with President Trump as a Senate leader or House leader, that hurts us all. That's not rocket science.
Do you have any
That
reason
makes
to
sense.
believe that? Do you have any reason to believe they can't mend their relationship?
I don't know. It's up to them. I hope they can. It'd be good. I like Mitch fine. I think he's done a great job, as I said. But, you know, like it or not, the leader of the Republican Party nationally is Donald Trump, and nothing's going to change unless something comes out of left field. What you saw today in the Senate Democratic Party, that makes perfect sense to me that Joe Biden would push for a change in the filibuster to keep from being run out of town by the left.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense to me that a handful of people in red and purple states would stand up to him. This is good politics for both sides on the Democratic side. What's good politics for Republicans? To work with President Trump. You don't have to agree with everything he does, but have a working relationship.
Well, Senator, if your relationship with President Trump is indicative of anything, it is possible to bury the hatchet. I remember a time when he was so dang mad at you, he gave out your phone number to America.
He hated my guts, yeah. But I've come to like him, and he likes him, so that brings us together.
All right. Well, you have a share of a love of golf. All right. Senator, always great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.